Hello fellow FPL managers and welcome to this week's FPL video focusing on Game Week 22. Before we get into that, let's look over the last video and the predictions I made for the festive fixture periods of Game Weeks 19, 20 and 21, as well as how my team performed and the transfers that I made. So this video will be slightly different as I'll be putting the team on the screen and putting my face on the screen to look at the past points and look how I got on. Okay, so starting game week 19, you can see I had a pretty good start to the Christmas period, especially with Wan-Bissaka coming off the bench for an injured Martial. I had brought Rashford in, you can see up front there with Aubameyang. I had a great midfield partnership of Hazard and Anderson, who was massively transferred out in this week. And of course, Dean coming in there with that Burnley result and bagging 2 goals as well. What a week this was. 82, I think it was my highest one of the season so far, but then it was a bit like chalk and cheese. It was almost the same team. I made one transfer just as the hype train was building. I swapped Martial out for Pogba and he saved my game week 20. 52 points, just above average. Wasn't the worst. You can see I was glad to see Kamara on the bench there for -1, but honestly, the 2 Manchester United players completely saved my game week. 29 points for this week came from Pogba. The only shame here was Hazard getting the captain's armband, who really let me down over the festive period, and I'm sure he let a lot of you down as well. Some really favourable fixtures, and he was playing, didn't get rotated out, and he just didn't pick up the points. You can see Pogba there, vice captain, 18 points. Could have been a really good game week if I'd have just risked that Pogba move, and the rest across the board as well was not a good game week at all. And then going into the game week just gone, you can see I brought in Arnautovic there, who had because that was always my plan. I know he got injured and I wanted to get him straight back in at 6.9 to save a bit of money. He was in my team for a long time. He came in and scored 2 goals. This as well was just above average game week. You see Wan-Bissaka and Alonso doing well at the back there. Foster picking up 4 points, who's been on my radar about maybe getting him out of the team. And then Dean just picking up 1 point. But against Sane, against Liverpool away there, getting that goal and getting 10 points. But I do have a plan. This is called New Year, New Plan for a reason. So the transfers you can see that I made, that Rashford made away this week for Arnautovic. And you can see my bench had a really solid week as well. 5 points for Robertson, 5 points for Kamara, and 5 points for Bednarek. So pretty much anyone could have gone out and someone could have come in, and I would have had just as good, if not a better game week, because you can see my midfield again let me down. Pogba not doing much that week. Anderson had a pretty quiet 2-game week, so people will be looking to get rid of Anderson if they have brought Arnautovic in. They might not want to double down on West Ham players. I personally am not looking to do that because my future plan is looking like this. So my future transfer, my team for this week, so I'm going to put it on the screen now, is I've taken out Aubameyang and I've put in Firmino. And this is a move that I've thought about for a long time. I've even put it on the FPL subreddit. And it's the question of premium strikers. Are they worth it? And for me, they just haven't been. Granted, Aubameyang is still high scoring. He's still up there. He's got good fixtures. But for me, even before Firmino got that hat trick, he was going to be partnered with Arnautovic, with Wan-Bissaka, Kamara on the bench as backup with Bednarek. And my tactic now is pretty much looking to be this. Next game week, I'll take a -4 hit. And the 2 plans that I'm looking for. Plan A, very, very simple. Sane, Alonso out. David Luiz and Salah in. That is my future plan. That'll leave me now on 0, completely emptied out the bank account that I've been saving up, because you can notice the last few game weeks, I think the last 4 game weeks, I've been saving up money in the bank, and I'm just feeling like the premium strikers aren't worth it. And yeah, it's maybe doubling down on Liverpool. Yes, I don't have any City assets anymore, but I'm just looking at this team and, to be honest, I'm liking it. Chelsea have some favourable fixtures, so I don't want to give up a Chelsea defender. If you just look at the fixture list that they've got coming up, You know, Newcastle, Arsenal, I'm still confident they can do well away at Arsenal. Bournemouth, Huddersfield, City is obviously the standout one, but Spurs at home. But for me, I still want a Chelsea defender, and they don't come as cheap with 90 minutes under the belt than David Luiz. And his price has been slowly coming up. I've been looking at him since I think it was 5.7. So he was 5.7 in game week 17, and he's been on my radar to save some money for Alonso, but I've stuck by Alonso because I got rid of Salah, I think, in week 5, and obviously I've regretted that now due to his return. But I really need none of these go up. My second plan would be to actually not have Luiz, go for Doherty, who's having an amazing season so far. And again, with the fixtures coming up after this game week, so from game week 23, the rest of his season, apart from week 30 and 31, are the standout in the last game of the season away at Liverpool. But then the reason why I'm thinking this is I've got Robertson, I've got Wan-Bissaka, I've got Digne, and I don't mind having Wan-Bissaka. Too many times I've kind of just thought he's just going to stay on the bench, but the more now I see Palace, especially when they play at home, the more I'm not bothered about starting Wan-Bissaka in the starting lineup. And the reason why I want to do this is because I'm thinking of having a rotation option in goal. Now, I was thinking of getting rid of Foster because they have a few difficult game weeks, but he's just not been. If you look at the goalkeepers that have played through pretty much the entire season, Foster is down here. Now, 2 or 3 game weeks ago, he was one of the worst constantly playing goalkeepers in the Premier League. I think he saved a penalty a few weeks ago. If I look at his game week record, yeah, week 18 he got 11 points, and that's the only reason really why he's up there. Almost the entirety, he's had maybe 2 or 3 game weeks the whole season that have been worth it. And if I remember rightly, I was looking at Patricio at Wolves, someone who's going sort of down and out in favour, and their game weeks where they have difficult fixtures, so 30 and 31, weren't really clashing with Foster's fixtures. I think, was it 30? So obviously it's City, but then Southampton, so then Foster would play. So it's finding the right goalkeeper to swap in, because I've always stuck with just one goalkeeper for the entire season. I don't switch them out. I'm thinking that I can either have a keeper that I can swap and definitely have a favourable fixture, because, so for example, if I just again stick with Foster when they're at Spurs away, Liverpool, Leicester, City, that sort of 3 game gap there. United, Fulham at home is fine, but then Arsenal at home. Ending the season, Wolves, Chelsea, West Ham. I'm just thinking I don't have any other options because Hamer doesn't play. I could also maybe switch in Button, but at Brighton, but he's going to lose his place again once Ryan returns from the Asian Cup. So these are the 2 options that I'm having for, but it's the idea of not having a top tier premium striker. You could argue that Firmino is up there in terms of price if we just organize this through price, but for me, I'm not going to go with Lacazette because he doesn't constantly get 90 minutes under his belt. And then I was again looking at Jamie Vardy, but they have chunks of difficult fixtures, and I wasn't really looking to switch in and out that much. So if I did want to do it, then Vardy would be the one that comes in for Firmino, and then I'd use that extra money I saved between Vardy and Firmino for improvements in defense, maybe even in midfield. So Vardy was also an option for Firmino, but I did like the idea of the 2 Liverpool assets, making up for the fact that I don't have any Manchester City assets, because I do still have Sane for this week, but these are my 2 game option transfers that I am thinking of doing next week for a -4 hit, or I want to save my wild card for at least the end of the January transfer window, because we don't know who is coming in or out of the league. So people have been talking about Liverpool's Solanke, who is now obviously at Bournemouth. He's 4.7. He's still 4.7. He's injured till February, but they're thinking maybe I'll have him, especially if Wilson goes to Chelsea, as a backup instead of Kamara. I'm personally going to stick with Kamara until Solanke actually does something. I don't mean that in a mean way, but I mean that in a sense of he's untested really in the Premier League, and Kamara for 4.4 million has, for me, when I got him at 4.4 million, is worth it. He's sometimes playing, he's sometimes scoring, he's sometimes missing penalties, but he is playing, sometimes, and he is getting points, and he is my second or third choice substitute. So those are two options I'm thinking about, either going a little bit cheaper with a defender with someone like Doherty, who's been absolutely out of this world for FPL this season, and having a rotation option in goal, or sticking with the goalkeepers and just swapping David Luiz for Alonso and Salah in for Sane. Because too many times, I mean, I know that Sane had a great game week for me last game week, but for too often, I said I had Sane right at the start of the season when he was not playing. I think I got rid of him game week 4, and then of course game week 5 he started to play, he started to do well, and of course he rose up to where he is today. But you can see, yeah, he got 10 points at Liverpool. I stuck with him. I didn't take any points hit, and he got me 10 points. Excellent. But again, it's that constant question that I hate, the anxiety of not knowing which City player is or isn't going to play. I'm not backing any goalkeeper or defender from Manchester City, and I'm not going to... The only sort of dead set player that must play is Fernandinho, and I'm not going to get Fernandinho in for any of the midfielders I've currently got. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think about these suggestions for the transfers. But the idea is, which I mentioned weeks and weeks ago, that I've been building up. This is why I've been saving money, is to not have a premium striker. I think for Firmino and Arnautovic as a strike force is actually pretty handy. I can always just keep swapping Vardy for Firmino, sort of sticking around that 8 to 9-ish area of striker. I think that might see me right for the end of the season. And then I only have to really, I've got a killer midfield, and I just really need to focus on making sure my first and second choice subs stay in the lineup. So I've had Wan-Bissaka for almost all of the season. He's going to stay there for the whole season. It'd be silly to get rid of it. Bednarek now is constantly getting 90 minutes under his belt, and I got him as soon as he got that first 90 minutes under his belt. I got him in as my last choice sub. So I just need to make sure that maybe I can use... There's no real way to improve Kamara. So if I downgrade Firmino to Vardy, I could maybe upgrade Kamara to somebody else, or get a better goalkeeper. But let me know in the comments below what you think about that. Now let's have a look at the predictions that I made for game weeks 19 to 21. So these were the game week 19 to 21 players that I suggested to use for the entire festive period. These were the people I suggested, not just for one game week or two, but for all three. The ones I didn't think would get rotated out, the ones I think that would get constant minutes under their belts. And I'll go through the scores for each one, the 3 game weeks, and we'll have a look. And pretty much my conclusion was this. So as you can see, that for the players to avoid, Edison, we'll have a look at his points. He got 2 points, 3 points, and 2 points. People have been constantly backing out of Manchester City's defense in the last sort of 10 game weeks because he's just not keeping clean sheets. And for his price, you're much more better off getting even someone like Joe Hart, which I've mentioned in the previous video, or even my own Ben Foster for the price that he is, or at least was. His points are not worth it right now. 2-3-2 in the last 3 game weeks is not good enough. And Wilson, I said that would find it too difficult with the Bournemouth fixtures, and that has also proven right. I know he got a goal, he got 6 points last week, but the 2 game weeks before that, it was 2 points and 2 points, which is not good enough. Robertson, though, I did turn out to be wrong. I did point out, though, against Newcastle in that first festive game, that he would do well, but I thought he was going to struggle against Arsenal, and he only got 1 point against Arsenal, so I was kind of right there. But then he got an assist and 5 points against Manchester City. So overall, I would say I would be wrong about that suggestion. As for my players to pick, Hazard, I put So-So here because remember, in that first festive period game week, he scored 15 points. So he scored 15, 3, and 3. So he did average 7 points for each of the game weeks, which on a whole, if you've got a player getting 7 points, you think that's a pretty good take for the week. But I've captained in, and the fixtures that he had, so it's so or even a no, because he should have got more with the fixtures that he had and the possibilities of getting really high scoring games and the amount of people that captained him over the festive period, with other people having rotation risks, and he sort of felt like he was dead set playing. He kind of disappointed. He played well. He kind of passes the eye test. He hits the post. He constantly has possession of the ball. He's always looking dangerous. But FPL wise, it's a so or a no for the festive period. As for Anderson, it's almost the same reason. He got 15 points in that very first game where so many people transferred him out. Then it was a 2 and then a 2. So he averaged around 6, just over 6 points per game week, which isn't too bad if you look at that for every game week. But the fact that it's a 1 big hit and then a 2 and then a 2. And then Pogba, before the Pogba train was well and truly marching on. I'd already brought him into the side for Martial after that Cardiff game. I was already thinking of doing that. I was waiting for the Cardiff game to see if he was going to play. He did, transferred in, because you guys know I make my transfers immediately, almost immediately, because of making the FPL videos and trying to get that out with my thoughts and feelings straight away. And he was already in there. Bam, 15 points, 18 points, and then just 3 though against Newcastle. But you cannot argue with that festive period. What a festive period it was for Manchester United. People were thinking, oh, it's only Cardiff. You know, again, on the Reddit page, people were discussing it and thinking, oh, you're hyping it up. I wouldn't dive into United assets yet. But for the price that it was and the fixtures that they had and they were playing, there you go. No one's looking back now. And now everyone looks like they want to get 3 United assets in, which I'm not. I'm just going to stick with 1. I'm going to stick with Pogba. But again, that was the right call. Going on to the plays to risk, I did say Sigurdsson. They did have the lowest amount of rest days, which of course is difficult. But 11 points in his first game week, so that's a good take. But then 1, then 2. So I did put an X here. Could have maybe been a so he was wrong, but not by a lot. Everton had a disappointing Christmas period. Son Heung-min, what can stop? The worst thing about this guy is I had him and I swapped him out. I swapped him for Sane, thinking, gotta have a City asset. I've not had one for so long. I've got Son. I think he's going to play. My argument was he's going to be used up until he goes off to the Asian Cup. I didn't want to lose money. I've got a chance to upgrade to Sane. Son can't keep it going, and that has been my biggest mistake of the season so far. Not even getting rid of Salah, because I got rid of Salah for Hazard all that time ago, and Hazard's had a great season as well. But the fact that he scored 13 points, 5 points, and 15 points compared to Sane's, I think it was 10, but then like 2 and 1. Son had 1 game week equaling the entire 3 weeks of Sane, and that was my downfall, not sticking with the South Korean. I brought him in and I was annoyed because he got rested. He came on against Burnley, didn't really score that game week. I was like, right, bam, I can upgrade to Sane. And it really has proved everyone's undoing. If you've not had Son, he was my play to risk. I didn't take the risk on him, and there you go. I've suffered for it because he had a blinding Christmas and New Year period. And then finally, Lingard. I had this because he was cheap. I had it because I thought he was going to play, which he did, but his points were only 5, 2, and 1, which wasn't quite enough. So this is it for looking at my team and having a look at the team that I'm going to be picking for this game week. So as you can see, I'm not going to do the usual. I'll go back to normal videos next week, but I had a lot to talk about and I didn't want to waste anyone's time. So looking at my team for this week, you can see Foster is going to start in goal. The only sort of selection headache I had was Wan-Bissaka's playing at home. Should I play him? Because we've got Robertson away at Brighton, I'm going to stick with. Alonso at home to Newcastle, I'm going to stick with. But it's Digne. Bournemouth's been on a bad run. He's playing, but Everton it just feels like Everton are, apart from that Burnley result, I'm just feeling that they're not going to keep a clean sheet. I'm relying on his assists, really, for the amount of crosses that he puts in, but I don't rely on whoever he's giving it to. If Richarlison's playing as that central striker, I'm more comfortable. If Calvert-Lewin or Tosin are playing, I'm feeling less confident in him. So do I go with Wan at home to Watford or Dean at home to Bournemouth? So I'm going to stick it like this at the moment, especially with doubts over Pogba and Arnautovic. Small doubts, apparently, from the interviews that we've seen, especially with Arnautovic. He said we played him, we were winning, it's fine. He had a twinge in his back. Just don't want to, rush him too much because he's just back from injury. But we're going to be having Hazard as captain. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with Hazard taking the captain's armband. Sane, you can see, as vice, because I could never bring myself to captaining an outfield City player because you just don't know who he's going to play. He didn't start in the FA Cup. He did come on and score in the FA Cup, but he is looking likely to start, especially with Mendy still out. People think that if Mendy doesn't play, Sane has more chance of playing, but this should be his last week in the team. Like I said before, it's going to be Salah coming in and either David Luiz or Doherty, depending on where we're going to do the money, and I can keep switching out Firmino for Vardy, someone like that. But up front, Arnautovic and Firmino hopefully going to be fit. It's looking like it should be a pretty good game week. The only one the only two sort of issues we're looking at here is Felipe Anderson, but at home to Arsenal, it's a London derby. Arsenal have a whole host of problems in defence still that I'm thinking that Anderson is going to overcome some fatigue over the Christmas period, and he's definitely going to be looking dangerous, especially if he can link up with Arnautovic. And Pogba away to Tottenham. United are in good form. This is the first real test for the new look United side and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So I am going to keep him. I'm not going to put Wan-Bissaka in for Paul Pogba. But yeah, this is going to be the team for the week. And now let's have a look at the predictions of the players who I think we should pick, avoid, and take a risk on for game week 22. Okay, so let's look at my game week 22 predictions and players to pick, avoid, and take a risk on. So we're going to start with the risk side this week, and I am going to go for Etheridge because Cardiff at home, and they usually do all right at home, but the fact that they're against Huddersfield, who are just so woeful away, that if you're thinking of which goalkeeper to go for this week, out of all of them in the entire Premier League, he would definitely be the one that I would be putting in between the sticks for this game week. And then my other two choices, I went for Goodmanson, Burnley, playing at home to Fulham, and I think he's going to have the ability to create chances. Fulham, we know, don't have the greatest defense. They have massively improved. They're not conceding too many chances, but I think a rough and tumble game at Turf Moor, and Burnley are going to be fighting tooth and nail. Their own performances have started to improve in the last couple of weeks, so I do think that if it's not Goodmanson, maybe Barnes up front. I do feel that a goal will definitely come against Fulham. And then finally, Wan-Bissaka at home to Watford. Like I said before, Palace at home are a very, very strong side, it seems, and Wan-Bissaka, arguably the cheapest bargain in FPL history. He's probably, 95% going to play. He's going to be down that right side. And Watford, a real hit and miss away from home. They'll either win a game 3-0 or lose a game 3-0. And I think that Palace are going to even possibly keep a clean sheet, but he's going to be causing problems down that side because Watford's wingers especially like to get very far forward, perhaps not best defensively, and that's when Wan-Bissaka with his pace can get in behind that Watford defence and midfield. Looking at my players to pick, and I'm going to have to stick with my guns and go with Eden Hazard. He's at home. He's arguably got the easiest fixture in terms of the top FPL players this game week. You could argue maybe City, but again, you can never nail on which City players are definitely going to play. But you've got Spurs against United. You've got Chelsea, you've got Newcastle, but then you've got Arsenal are off to West Ham, Liverpool off to Brighton, which isn't a particularly easy game. But at home to Newcastle, he must be the number one captain choice for me this week. And then, of course, you've got Salah. You can never really rule out Salah, but away to Brighton, they do concede goals. So, again, Liverpool will be looking strong FPL-wise this game week. And then finally, Vardy. At home to Southampton. He could have even been the number one pick for me this week. Like I said, Leicester City have got chunks of good game weeks and chunks of bad ones, and right now we're in a good period for Leicester City. He did bag the winner as well against Everton, and I do feel like he's going to keep up that form, especially against a team like Southampton, with the one exception with them getting a clean sheet remarkably against Chelsea. I do feel like an away game at Leicester City, things are going to go back to normal in my opinion. So they're my three players to pick for this game week. Finally, my players to avoid, and I'm going to go with Christian Eriksen. Spurs at home to Manchester United. You might have thought maybe someone like Son or Kane, but I'm just feeling that Eriksen, it seems that more and more hype is coming from it. I've seen maybe some scout posts about maybe consider Eriksen. I'm just thinking, not for me, particularly not against this game week. That United are probably going to set up a little bit more defensively. Pogba is looking like an engine. I think they're going to ask him to close him down. I think they should avoid Fred. He's not doing too well recently. But I mean, if the likes of Matic is playing, I think he's going to really nullify Eriksen. And that might cause Kane to track back. I don't see a lot of points coming from Spurs this week. And Eriksen is the top player there that I've chosen to avoid for this game week. Alongside that is Rashford. Similar reason, I don't see a lot of points coming from attacking players. I don't see a 3-3 thriller at Wembley, if I'm perfectly honest. Of course, we can always be wrong. This is speculation. But for me, Rashford, the fact that Lukaku is now completely back into the fold, I'm not 100% sure he's going to play. There's rumours of him not being 100% fit, Rashford not being 100% fit. But even if he plays, I think he'll find it very difficult against a very strong and now almost fully fit Spurs defence. And finally, Wilson, again, a massive underdog. He's done great things this year, but I said weeks and weeks ago with this difficult game pile up for Bournemouth, and it's sort of come true, and I don't think he's going to find much joy at Everton. Honestly, for me, though, that is a coin spin. I think he's either going to bag 0 or bag 2. For Wilson, it's going to be completely down to Everton. If Everton come out and play like they should be playing with that team, I don't think he's going to score. But if Everton have another week like they did where they couldn't hit a barn door like they did against Leicester, then that is when I think Wilson will get a goal. So depends which Everton side come out on Sunday early afternoon. If a decent Everton and a great Everton side come out with one of those two, then I think Wilson will really struggle, especially with those rumours still circulating around a possible move to Chelsea. Those are dying down a little bit, but with Solanke coming in, more and more questions are being asked of where Wilson is going to be spending the rest of this season. With 19 million is nothing to shake your head at, especially for Bournemouth. So we'll see what happens with Wilson. If Wilson did go to Chelsea, I think he could be the most transferred player ever, because the fact that he's 6.7 million still now, and then he's going to be ahead of Giroud, he's going to be ahead of Morata, he's going to be playing next to Hazard. He must be team selected by over 50% is what I would be aiming at for days. It's already ridiculously high now, but if he goes to Chelsea, it's going to absolutely skyrocket. But that's going to be it for me this week, guys. If you like this setup, let me know, and I'll keep it like this, or I'll revert back to my little animations and stuff from last game week. But we had a lot to talk about, 3 game weeks previous and predictions to cover, and then flick through the scores that I got, the potential transfer ideas. Let me know in the comments as well about that. Do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea? And these are this week's predictions for game week 22. Thanks again, guys. Thank you for support. I'm really hoping that I'm going to keep building and trying to improve. I'm starting to get my own FPL side to where I want it to be, but let me know in the comments below what you think about my transfer ideas. We're up to about 630,000, 650,000, something like that in the world now, and I'm hoping that is going to go up because I had a really bad middle part so far, but we're only halfway through the season, and I'm hoping the only way is up. So thanks again for your support. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a good one.